I just think about when we started this work and what I knew we had to do.
They had partners, they had, elected officials involved. They had, almost 200 people coming together to talk about what our vision is for our students.
And then how do we redefine what success in school looks like?
Children of the state will have an extended spring break.
It was supposed to be this early spring break, according to the governor, and it wasn't. It turned into our new normal.
Scrambling to figure out, okay, well, we need to make packets. We need to send home books. None of us had an online infrastructure set up.
When our children were in school and we were at work, we knew that they were receiving the important social emotional development, communications, feedback. And now, they're not receiving that.
It was just a lot to figure out. We are giant bureaucratic government, right? And if anybody knows how that works, it's typically very slow and methodical.
Our students deserve an excellent education. I knew that we could not do this work alone.
Okay, welcome back. Looks like most everybody's back to the big room here.
What's important is that everyone is coming to the table to kind of show what we're seeing as an organization from our students, where are maybe some of the gaps, and how can we continue on.
Innovation and change is often slow to occur because there isn't an urgency. We have an urgency now.
Now see the teachers knocking on their doors due to a crisis. It opens up the opportunity for our young people and those parents to open their heart to be receptive.
Our Columbus City Schools will come back stronger than ever, and we actually see us perpetuating our academic achievement because of COVID.
And so this idea that we can be agile, we can move, we can be innovative and creative, even as a huge government entity, it's possible.
If we are going to build something strong, that is lasting, and something that's creative and innovative, the time to do it was now.
Thank you for your time, your thoughts, and all the love that you've shown to our students and your commitment to this district. Thank you.
Welcome, CCS community, to the September 1st regular board meeting of the Columbus Board of Education. I am Board President Jennifer Adair. Mr. Treasurer, will you please call our roll?
President Adair.
Present.
Ms. Beckerly.
Present.
Mr. Brown.
I'm here.
Mr. Cole.
Present.
Dr. Pierce.
I'm present.
Mr. Ragland.
Here.
Vice President Reyes.
Here.
You have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you so much. And now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance from Miss Eva Rausch from PAC 306. And Miss Eva is 5 years old, and we are very excited to have her this evening. So go ahead whenever you're ready.
I pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance of the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. You did a great job. Okay, board members, you have your agenda before you. So let me just review quickly what is on it. We do not have any board recognitions this evening. We have one public speaker report from the superintendent. Internal auditor, treasurer, we have no report this evening. No items on board matters. We have a full consent agenda. Then we have some announcements, and we will have executive session this evening and then adjournment back in public session. Are there any questions? Or first, before that, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, please call the roll.
President Adair.
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Cole.
Yes.
Dr. Pierce.
Yes.
Mr. Ragland.
Yes.
Vice President Reyes.
Yes.
That motion carried.
Thank you so much. We do not have any board recognition this evening, so we will move into public comment. We will have Ms. Nichols join us, who may already have the caller on the line. I don't know. So our first caller, our only caller this evening, is Mr. Stephen Hardwick. He is here to speak to the board about hiring a new director of gifted services. Board action: hire a new director of gifted services to replace the previous director who announced her resignation in May. And we, Mr. Hardwick, you have 4 minutes to address the board, and I will begin the timer once you begin speaking. So go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, President Adair, members of the board, Superintendent Dixon. I hope it turns out that my talk tonight is pointless because all of my concerns have been allayed. But I am concerned that we haven't hired a gifted services director, even though Dr. Boyle gave her notice back in May. And I even understand we've interviewed people for the position, but somehow that seems to be in limbo. And even though I'm here speaking on behalf of the PTO at the Gifted Academy, I think the kids there are going to be fine, at least in the short term, because that school has a dedicated staff of both teachers and administrators who know how to deliver and organize the curriculum that gifted learners need. But that's a good chunk of what the gifted services director does for the entire district. And one of my biggest concerns is how do we deal with what's probably the biggest challenge of gifted education, and that's the equity of finding all the kids who need these services, who could benefit from the more accelerated and project-based curriculum that gifted services allow, but that we aren't finding because of their disadvantaged background. And I remember hearing earlier in the spring when board member Reyes was talking about how difficult it was to be a kid who could benefit but wasn't being found. And again, that's part of what the gifted services director did. As I understand it, the district usually, when a kid comes close to being able to show eligibility and need of gifted services, to come back and retest the kid to make sure that they haven't just missed someone. But as I understand it, we haven't been retesting kids. The district also in the spring made a very ambitious promise of keeping all existing gifted services and expanding at least some services in every single building. That's an ambitious promise, and it will be difficult to keep in a resource restricted environment, even more difficult when you don't have someone whose job it is to organize and to make sure that the right teachers and materials make it to the right place for the kids who need them. And also someone who can help hire. Last I understand, we have hired 11 of the 23 gifted services professionals we were promised in the levy 4 years ago. Also in the spring, we were told there'd be a task force this fall to deal with planning gifted services, and I haven't heard anything about that. And that's difficult to do without a gifted services director. There's also training that needs to be done so the teachers keep their state mandated certificates. And I know Dr. Boyle's boss has been trying to do a lot of this work, but it's hard for one person to do their own job, the former subordinate's job, and now she probably also has to do some of Dr. Ocasio's former job. That's who she had to report to. Finally, I know the board has heard me talk a lot about facilities and other issues, but one of the things that makes me most passionate about education issues is that my day job as a public defender who does appeals involves I work for a lot of kids who find themselves in the most serious trouble a kid can find themselves in, which is literally being sentenced to die in prison. And so often when I have read my clients' files and visited them, I've just been so blown over by how incredibly smart my kids are. And I just think that if they had had the opportunities that I had had, and I had had the opportunities that they had had, that there's a very good chance that we'd be sitting on the opposite side of the interview table, and in the prison. But what I really just hope is that the Columbus City Schools can do whatever it can to make sure that the kids who can benefit from the more advanced curriculum, for the accelerated project-based curriculum the gifted learners need, that we identify them and that we hire the people we need to do that. I thank the board for its time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hardwick. Before I ask the board if there's any clarifying questions, I'll turn it to the superintendent to see if she would like to address that.
Yes, thank you, President Adair. I have our Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction, Elise Clark, who will provide an update of where we are with our Director of Gifted Services. Mrs. Clark?
Thank you. Good evening, and I appreciate your comments, Mr. Hardwick. So as of today, a candidate has been selected. At this point, that person has some paperwork that has to be completed through HR. And so that process is where we are. Dr. Boyle was kind enough to make sure she left everything, including the service delivery, all of those items that you mentioned, that we needed to make sure that that is happening. So in the interim, we are not stopping the work. We are ensuring we're working with the gifted intervention specialists. We are in interviewing. More interviews for teachers are also continuing on Thursday to fill those other spots, as you stated, to make sure that we make good on the promise that was made back in the spring to extend those gifted services and also to provide that professional development. So that's been the update with regard to the gifted director, as well as how we're working to make sure those services are in place, and then we can make a transition with the new director.
And I would like to add, thank you, Mrs. Clark, that when we make the announcement, the person who has been selected is indeed a Columbus City Schools graduate. And so that person is relocated and coming back home to take on this opportunity and lead the district in which she graduated from and was a gifted student in the district when she graduated.
Thank you so much. Board members, any clarifying questions for Mr. Hardwick? Dr. Pierce.
So Mr. Hardwick, thank you so much for bringing these comments before the board. In addition to seeking information updates on our progress in hiring a director of gifted services, it also sounds like you're very interested in almost an executive report or summary of where we stand with our gifted services. Throughout your comments, you issued a number of questions related to, have we been retesting students with services? Have we been providing while the GT position has been in limbo? So would it be beneficial as a parent of students in our district, gifted students, as an avid community supporter of our district, to have an executive summary and report of our gifted services?
Yes, it would. Thank you, Dr. Pierce.
Any other clarifying questions for Mr. Hardwick? Seeing none, thank you so much for taking the opportunity to speak with us this evening.
Thank you, President Adair.
You're welcome. All right, so we will now move to item 5, the executive report of the superintendent. Madam Superintendent, over to you.
All right, thank you, everyone. So Okay, so thank you, President Adair. I just have a handful of brief updates to provide tonight. As you know, we're just a week away from starting the new school year. Next Tuesday, September 8th, CCS will begin the year in a completely virtual learning environment for all students in grades pre-K through 12. Most of our students will be engaging through their school's remote learning platforms. Many of our students, around 5,200, will be engaging through our new self-paced CCS Digital Academy. No matter which remote learning platform is being used, we know that our teachers and staff have a tremendous responsibility to provide meaningful and rigorous learning experiences for all of our students. I am confident that CCS will rise up to meet this great challenge ahead of us. Our year-round Woodcrest Elementary is in full swing. While the school year is just about to begin for students on the traditional academic calendar, our only year-round school, Woodcrest Elementary, has been going strong with remote learning since late July. One-to-one devices, access for pre-K through 5th grade students has been critical to helping our year-round students get off to an excellent start. Principal Brianne Pinnell and her staff have also hosted virtual parent meetings and open houses, and the school has continued to maintain classroom traditions virtually while using digital platforms with clear guides for families. All students were able to receive reading and math resources and manipulatives to support learning while students are away from school. Thank you to our outstanding Woodcrest teachers and staff who have been engaging our students remotely this summer. Congratulations are in order for Principal Cheryl Jones and the teachers and staff of East Linden Elementary School. The Ohio Association of Elementary School Administrators announced today that East Linden Elementary has been selected as a 2020 Hall of Fame school. The Hall of Fame School Award recognizes schools that engage faculty, students, and the community to provide a quality school experience. The school staff submitted an extensive application documenting the effectiveness of their educational program in several areas. Hall of Fame schools were selected by a committee of OAESA members. That's the Ohio Association of Elementary School Administrative members. Congratulations to the school community at East Linden Elementary. All 9,000 plus staff members have been ongoing extensive training and professional development the past 2 weeks through our first ever CCS Summer Institute. We started with our virtual staff convocation last Monday morning, and we had 7,000 people log on live to watch the event and many more who watched it on demand. From there, we have offered small and large group sessions in the areas of curriculum and instruction, technology integration, social emotional learning and equity, and workplace shifts, health, and safety. I want to thank all of our staff members for their participation and engagement in these 2 weeks of training. Together, we are modeling lifelong learning by building the capacity of our staff members to better serve our students and families. Students can gear up for the school year this week. Beginning Wednesday, students in all CCS schools, including the Digital Academy, have the opportunity to pick up Chromebooks, instructional materials, and more at their school of attendance. Pickup procedures and schedules will vary by school. Families should contact their principal if they have not yet received information about their school's pickup dates and times. All 20,000 new Chromebook computers have been received and have been prepped to deploy to students who need them. Families can also request a Wi-Fi hotspot device if they do not have reliable internet access at home. As students are coming to our school buildings to pick up Chromebooks and academic materials, several of our community partners are also providing resources for families to take home. One of those partners is Student Success Stores. This weekend, dozens of their volunteers packed special hygiene kits, individual hygiene kits for young men and young women, as well as family hygiene kits. This morning, they delivered hundreds of these kits to 11 of our schools. In the coming weeks, the organization is set to provide additional hygiene kits for families when they stop by our food distribution sites. Since the start of our unprecedented grab-and-go food site effort at the beginning of this pandemic last March, our food service team has provided more than 500,000 meals to young people throughout our entire community. That's hundreds of thousands of free, healthy breakfasts and lunches that families didn't have to worry about for their children as they struggle through the fear and uncertainty of this COVID-19 crisis. As we start the school year next week, we will be expanding the distribution of our food services program to 44 sites across the district. Every Wednesday, beginning September 9th, families will be able to pick up a free weekly 5-day meal pack for any child 18 and under while our students are learning in our remote environment. The meal packs will contain 5 days of breakfast and 5 days of lunch boxed together. To make it easy, we will assign families a specific grab-and-go location close to their home. Meal pickups would be every Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and in the evening from 5 to 7 p.m. Families can expect recorded phone dialer reminders in the coming days. We'll also have sites posted on our reopening hub on the district website at ccsoh.us/reopening. As we open the school year in a virtual learning environment, community partnerships are so critical in helping us serve our students and families. One way that Columbus City Schools is leveraging the power of partnerships is through the creation of learning extension centers. These are safe, adult supervised spaces where students can feel supported while learning virtually. And parents can feel comforted knowing that their child is in a safe, welcoming environment during the day. CCS is partnering with several community organizations to create these centers, including some of our larger faith-based partners, and as we announced yesterday with Mayor Ginther and the Columbus Recreation and Parks on their active learning points. At these learning extension centers, students will have access to the internet and learning devices to assist them in remote learning. Staff at the centers will be able to assist students in accessing our CCS remote learning and digital academy platforms. In many of the LEC's locations, students will also be able to get meals and may have access to after-school type activities. LECs are not run by Columbus City Schools, but we are working to connect families and schools with LECs closest to them. Each of our 6 regions will have community and faith-based supported learning extension centers available for families. We're also providing training to the Learning Extension Center staff so they know how to help students and parents get online and into our remote learning platforms. Space in these centers is limited. Remember, to be safe, students will need socially distance workstation, so many of the LECs can only accommodate 10 to 15 students. That's why we're so appreciative when a community partner is able to host a learning extension center. Families will be able to find more information about LECs on the reopening section of our website. While we're ready to open the school year in a completely remote learning environment, preparations are also underway for when we're able to welcome students back into school buildings for a blended learning model. Our operation team has been preparing all of our school building and administrative sites so they're ready with all of our proper health, safety, and social distancing measures in place when it comes time to welcome back our 50,000 plus students and staff in in-person learning. The first step in returning to in-person classes will be a blended model where students will learn at school 2 days a week and at home the remaining 3 days. Families of our pre-K and 12th grade students are now able to choose their preferred weekly schedule of in-person when the blended learning model is implemented. They can log on to the parent portal until this Friday, September 4th at 5 p.m. to make their selection. If the selection is not made by the Friday deadline, families will be assigned an in-person cohort for their students. Again, this selection is for when blended learning model is implemented. As a reminder, we are opening the school next Tuesday, September 8th, in a completely virtual learning environment. But we want to be proactive and get ahead and get their parents their selections. As was announced last week, Columbus City Schools has allowed in-person interscholastic athletics and extracurricular activities to resume as of this past Saturday, August 29th. This decision was based on the decreasing trend in positive COVID-19 cases in the city of Columbus, according to the data from our Columbus public health officials. As we heard from Dr. Mashika Roberts last week, Columbus has seen the 4-week decline in positive cases that she and her team were looking for. It is certainly good news for our community that we're seeing a steady decline in the number of COVID cases. Columbus City Schools will continue to do its part to help sustain that trend. If the local public health data regarding COVID-19 worsens, Columbus City Schools will consider suspending all-person athletics and extracurricular activities again to help mitigate the spread of the virus in our community. We know how important athletics and extracurricular activities are to our schools and our community, but most importantly, we know how much these opportunities mean to our students. As a district, we're excited to be able to provide these opportunities this fall while following health and safety guidelines. I would like to remind viewers about our continued virtual family engagement sessions that are hosted weekly. This week's focus is on Parent Portal, which is a valuable tool for families to stay engaged in their child's education and to securely access valuable information such as grades and course schedules, daily attendance, and missed assignments. We know accessing the Parent Portal for the first time or remembering how to navigate through it can be a challenge. And that's why we're dedicating 2 virtual family engagement sessions to using the Parent Portal. In fact, the first session is happening live right now. This session will be available on demand on our website and social media channels. And another live session is scheduled for Thursday at 6:00 p.m. Our partners from the Columbus Metropolitan Library will also join our virtual family engagement sessions this week to share information on their virtual homework help centers, Reading Buddies program, and tech support for students having trouble using their Chromebooks. Families must register to attend the family virtual engagement sessions by visiting ccsoh.us/RSVP. And finally, our virtual family engagement sessions on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings have continued to draw large numbers of families and staff. But we want to engage even more families in these final days leading up to the start of classes. So today we launched the first of our week-long Link Up Mini virtual family engagement sessions on Facebook Live. Today's 20-minute special sessions was hosted by Amanda McClafferty, our family ambassador at ECO Kenwood. She walked parents through the login process on Clever and shared some good tips on setting up an engaging educational space at home for your child. We also had a special message from our partners at City Year. We will be hosting these mini sessions all week. They will be live around noon and then available for video playback throughout the day. Tomorrow, we have some great tips and tools for parents who are stressing about the coming school year from our partners and Mifflin alum, I Know I Can Board President T. Street. So that concludes my report for tonight.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. We have a few questions from the board. We will start with Board Member Ragland.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Madam President. And thank you, Madam Superintendent, for your report today. My question is about Woodcrest. I've heard from many families from around the district the desire of having more year-round school options. I'm interested in knowing if we are using any data to kind of track student outcomes at Woodcrest versus some of our other schools in the area, as well as many of our alternative schools throughout the other regions of the district during the pandemic and otherwise overall. I'd like to see what our student outcomes are at Woodcrest versus what our students' outcomes are at our schools that aren't in school year round. And as we continue our strategic planning process, I think a comparison study might be in order for us so that we may be able to show what is happening inside of Woodcrest and how our students are performing, because we do have other parents that are interested in that option. I just think that they would like to know that it is an outcome-driven option for them. And so if you know of any type of data that we are using to show learning loss or lack thereof at Woodcrest, due to the pandemic and due to the fact that they were in school a lot longer than some of our other students this year, what are those data sets, and have we done a comparison study between Woodcrest and some of our other schools throughout the district, and especially in that east side area, in that region.
Yeah. Thank you. So what I'll do is, Mr. Ragland, I'll formalize a report and report back out to you at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Board Member Ragland. Now to Board Member Cole.
Thank you, Madam President. Thank you for the presentation, Dr. Dixon. My question is about that September 4th submission date for decision on the part of parents on the blended learning or vice versa, or otherwise, excuse me. Is there a way to extend that date a little further out? My concern is that this does not give parents enough response time. I really would, I appreciate the opportunity for parents to always have that efficacy aspect included, giving them voice, if you will, to make a decision. Always supportive of that and thankful for that. But sometimes we're a little short on the window of response time. And I think that we could do much better in terms of extending that out, provided that we're going virtual the first quarter of school anyway. So that's my first question. Can we extend that date further, farther in degree, farther in distance?
And I answer that first question, Mr. Cole. Yes, we'll talk to the team and we'll follow up on what that date extension will look like.
Thank you very kindly. The second one is for community members who reach out to me on a fairly regularly basis and ask sometimes what are very common sensible questions. But I want to at least be able to have them have a platform by which to be given a rationale. So if we're saying that we're going to return extracurricular activities with sports, athletics, why then not return to school? So I'd like to get that response, if I can, for community members who seem to, again, think very common sensibly on what our drivers for decision-making are and why it is that we chose to make this decision of bringing back sports and not school as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cole. To answer that partly, is when we made the decision to close school, we made that in conjunction with the city after working with our health officials, and we're being very thoughtful in planning that transition. So we didn't want to rush and transition back to a blended learning and not have the time to do so. It takes time to plan to move 50,000 students back to a hybrid model. And we want to be very thoughtful about that and be sure that, we're looking at the Columbus Public Health data, that data changes. So we didn't want to all of a sudden plan to bring people back and then 2 or 3 weeks later, we see that data change. So that was our rationale for our students. Our sports, athletic competition, we had been working on prior, and our students have been practicing. They've been practicing and using safe protocols. And we knew after advisement of Vincent Clarino, who is here tonight, if I need him to speak, we knew that transition with a smaller number of students, guided by the athletic directors and the coaches, that we could allow that and have more control and supervision of our students with our athletics and the extracurricular. So we wanted to make sure that we had more time, and we will. We have 2 weeks of professional development. Remember, we moved our schedule back to start after Labor Day because we wanted to build in the 10 days of professional development for our students. So that was the main reason why. It's not that we saw one as important as the other. It's just that families, I hope they realize we are a much larger school, the largest school district in the state, and that it takes more planning to transition us back to the plan that we originally were going to start with, and that was the hybrid plan. I don't know if Mr. Clarino is here, if there's anything that we may need to add to that regarding athletics. There you are, Dr. Clarino.
Yes, hey, good evening, everyone. Board President Adair, Vice President Reyes, Board Member Cole. I mean, essentially, without weighing in too heavily on the aspects of in-person education, one of the things that, as you heard Dr. Dixon, Superintendent, share, is that, our athletic platforms, are maybe a little bit more regulated in some respects. I don't want to say more regulated because I don't want to speak to the regulations that in-person learning will take, but we have a level of, regulated activities that allows, that coach or that individual athletic director to work with those small groups and ensure that we are following those protocols to a T for safety and things to that nature. So I don't want to get too deep into, maybe the comparisons of the two, because that really wouldn't be my spot to address, but I can share that in introducing and bringing back the athletic opportunities for our students who are participating, we're following the guidelines of the governor's 11-point order, which was introduced by, at the time, obviously the interim Ohio Health Director, the gentleman, Mr. Himes. We're following that to a T to make sure that we are in line with what is expected of us to provide that opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. We will now go to Board Member Beckerly.
Okay, thanks. I just wanted to add that I think that it's important that we don't set ourselves up for being in a constant state of transition. I mean, to some extent, we are in this huge pandemic that's, unprecedented, that word so often used now, it almost is losing its meaning. But, in addition to the logistics of transitioning from virtual to blended and how long it's going to take to get the buses and the classrooms and all of those sorts of physical things, children, need to have some stability. Our education model needs to have some stability. Our teachers do. And I think that deciding to go back to the sports, which was kind of was operating beforehand, and it's like an apples and oranges thing, really. And I think that asking us to switch back after we made our decision to go forward is going to be detrimental to everyone in a way that switching back to making sports allowing sports again was not, the same things weren't hanging in the balance. And I think that's worth noting.
Thank you, Board Member Beckerly. We will now go to Dr. Pierce. Dr. Pierce.
Thank you. I'm having some internet instability issues here. So Dr. Clarno, thank you for staying on. My first question is actually directed toward, can you please explain what our testing protocol for COVID-19 will be for our athletes?
She asked, what is the testing protocol for athletes?
Sorry about that. I was on mute, but thank you for clarifying because I wasn't able, it broke up a bit on my screen here. Thank you for the question. So ultimately, the governor's order required that student athletes, coaches, volunteers, individuals working in and around the athletic space do a daily self-assessment, which is what we will be following as they begin to come out and participate in athletic activities. So each individual will be required to perform that daily self-assessment, which was the same process in place during July, during our July practice time period. And I have been in coordination with our own school district's health office. And so we are using their tracking form if and when there is a situation so that they are able to come in and help us to be able to mitigate those situations as they arise.
Thank you for clarifying that. Dr. Dixon, can you please share, as a district, are we giving thought to implementing a testing protocol just to be on the safe side as it relates to our athletics and extracurricular activities?
We've not discussed it, but I'll follow up with the board members as and let you know what our discussion points are around that.
Excellent. My next question is, I've received a lot of emails from our band families, very concerned about the equity at which we have returned back to extracurricular activities. There's been a lot of publicity on football, for example. So can you please speak to how we have returned to our extracurriculars related to music and band?
Dr. Dixon, I can share if that's okay.
Yes, okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I've been in contact with, and I'm not sure if everyone in this group knows Dr. Betty Hill, who is the director in charge of Unified Arts for our school district, which includes band, because band, I don't think, and I'm just sharing this just as a simple piece of information, band is an actual curriculum course in high school where students are assigned to that as a classroom and they receive a grade for it. So then the performance component, which many people see that takes place on Friday evenings, obviously during a football game, is one aspect to the student's grade. And so I know that Betty, and like I said, I don't want to speak for Dr. Hill, but I know that, we've had some conversations, her and I, and she has had discussions with the building leadership at the high school level, and she has been in contact with the band directors to be able to provide what would be the platform for their own individualized restart. Where athletics comes in as it pertains to band performances and things to that nature, obviously is the coordination of the band being able to perform during what ultimately would be a football game on that Friday evening, what we all know to be football Friday evening.
Yes, and in addition to that, Dr. Pierce and the board, I will follow up with Dr. Hill, and we will provide a extracurricular plan for your review next week.
Thank you. I'm not sure if my internet is, but I had an additional question related to us surveying our students, specifically taking to are we're back. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
So I hear you, Carol. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
We can hear you, Doc.
Okay, so Mike, I can hear you. Can somebody give me a thumbs up when I can ask the next question or? Awesome. So my question was then, with the rollout of these new internet portals, these new internet sites, and all these things that we're using, do we have plans to regularly survey our students, parents, and caregivers to see how their end user experience is?
Yes, thank you. The great question. We're working with Dr. Klein and her shop on an evaluation piece. If you recall, that's part of one of the items that the PDK audit stated, that we needed an evaluation tool to our curriculum resources. And so we have that in the works. So when we get ready to roll that out and what that will look like, we'll follow up with the board on evaluating our various platforms and educational programs.
Excellent. And then my last question relates to Board Member Ragland's request to conduct a data analysis of the performance of our students at Woodcrest. As we think about equity, what concerns me is, as we show some schools performing better than other schools, it will become a conversation around which students are smart versus which students are not smart. So when you do that analysis, could you please run a correlation to ensure that you're accounting for teacher credentials, experience, all those other factors that may play into the student outcomes that we'll see at particular schools?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Pierce. I make note of that.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Jennifer, you're talking, but we can't hear you. You're off mute.
Can you guys hear me? Okay. I think that to Dr. Pierce's point and the earlier question, really this is part of a fuller scale equity audit that Dr. Blue will probably be working on. So if that is the case, I would rather see a fuller scale report of all of the complete district and not just one-offs. So I'm sure that we will get more information about what that equity audit will look like in the future. Now, we're going to go with to Eric Brown and then Board Member Beckerly. So Board Member Brown.
Thank you. And I agree with you, Jen, with respect to the broader look at equity. I just wanted to add, excuse me, I'm sorry. With respect to the question about COVID testing of athletes and COVID testing of anyone. I just had a conversation last week with Kate King about that at length, and that came about because there were some clinics and some other folks around the community who expressed some interest in offering testing for our students and working with us on that. When I got into the conversation, I just learned that there's an awful lot to this and a lot of reasons that we probably don't want to go down that road. But I'm sure that when Dr. Dixon gets back to us, she'll explain some of those things that Kate explained to me. Don't need to get into it now, but it's complicated. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. We will go to Board Member Beckerly.
Okay, I just had a quick request because I'm interested in learning about our special education plan. So I'm wondering if maybe we can do some briefings, you know, next board meeting for sure, but in the meantime, if we could schedule some briefings with board members to hear about that, Dr. Dixon, would that be okay?
Yes, once we finalize the plan among our teams, then we will meet with board members and et cetera. But we're still working on it and getting some additional data points. And then when Kira finalize it, we would be sure to share it because it's going to require for some adjustments in our planning.
All right, terrific. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And to Board Member Ragland.
Thank you. Dr. Dixon, my question is around the Learning Extension Centers. You mentioned in your report that we were working with larger faith-based institutions. And that was almost a red flag for me. Can you talk to me about the approach in working with our larger faith-based institution? Was it just due to the fact that they had the size available for the social distancing? Because I'm thinking about some of our larger faith-based institutions specifically. They're pretty much, many of them are located in areas where our students may have a difficult time getting to. And our smaller faith-based institutions, while they may not be able to host as many students, are probably more accessible to our students proximity-wise. So can you talk a little bit about the thought process in getting to the point where we're using larger institutions? And then have we identified either through the district or through our community partners opportunities to resource? We said that these would be paid for through other sources, but is the district providing the advocacy and the support for these institutions to go and get these dollars, or how is all of that coming together?
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to have Alicia Gillison chime in, but before that, I want to clarify that the Learning Extension Centers are where our communities, remember we've been talking about how we can partner with other organizations to help us leverage during this virtual times. And we wanted our community partners to have a space that they can help, right? So that the learning is extended from the school to other institutions who can help with our students. So Columbus is not, we're not endorsing or sponsoring any of these, but we are partnering with organizations to make these happen. But let Alicia speak to the faith-based organizations and the other organizations who have, who stepped up and said that they wanted to help our students and families in this way. Alicia?
Thank you. And thank you, Board Member Ragland, for that question. So when we talk about, I just want to be clear, our Learning Extension Centers are faith-based organizations and community organizations as well. Dr. Dixon shared in her report that recreation and parks have even stepped up. So we're not only using large faith-based organizations, it's any faith-based organization that felt like that they had the space to keep our students safe with the social distancing and everyone wearing masks. And our community partners are galvanizing around this community effort. It's really a beautiful thing. And when you think faith-based, parents have the opportunity, if they're okay with having a faith-based Learning Extension Center. If not, right down the street or right next door is a community Learning Extension Center for the students. There was some work with the Ohio department, through the governor's office, there was funding for both faith-based and community organizations for efforts such as this, as alternatives to COVID and actually being in the classroom. So we held meetings, but those meetings that we held with our faith-based and community partners, it was the representatives from the governor's office and representatives from Children's Hunger Alliance who kind of shared the resources and provided the grant opportunities.
Thank you, Alicia. Was that helpful, Mr. Ragland?
Yes, ma'am. I can certainly follow up with Ms. Gillison with further questions. Thank you, Dr. D.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
I just had a quick question about pre-K and kindergarten. Can we just have a quick update for those families about when they should start or look for registration? Because I believe that is happening right now. And if they need to go get Chromebooks or things like that, what can we tell our little ones who are just now becoming part of our CCS family?
Thank you. I will hand that to Dr. Klein. Dr. Klein, unless Elise is still on. Dr. Klein,
Dr.
Elise. Okay.
Hi, Dr. Dixon. This is Michelle. Thank you so much for the question, President Adair. So I can share with you that our pre-K students actually start later because they do there's additional work for them. So that communication has been sent out to all of our pre-K families. Our kindergarten students will be starting next Tuesday, and they should pick up Chromebooks just like everyone else. So we're very excited to welcome our newest learners to Columbus City Schools and get ready to rise up.
Thank you so much. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you so much for your report this evening, Superintendent. Okay, we will now move on to our agenda. Madam Auditor, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you, President Adair. I do not have a report for the board this evening.
Well, it is lovely to see you.
Thank you.
All right, now moving on to the Treasurer's Office. Mr. Treasurer, do you have a report this evening?
Thank you for asking, but no, I don't. But we do have a Finance and Appropriations Committee meeting a week from tomorrow on the 9th. It will be virtual at 4 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you so much. We have no items on our board matters, and now we will move to our consent agenda this evening, which includes items 10.1 to 24.1. Are there any items that a board member would wish to remove from the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes, with me abstaining from 13.2 and 13.3.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you so much. Now we will move into board announcements. Board members, this is the time for us to make announcements, or what I would like to give the opportunity to also give Rise Up praises. I know that board member Beckerly has one, but before I turn it over to her, let me just make a quick announcement that we have our Safe School Community Sessions that will begin. All right, I'm having a lot of tech challenges today. All right, so I don't know where I was, but Safe Schools, Safe Schools community sessions are starting tomorrow at 6 p.m. on Facebook and YouTube. Community members, you get to participate, follow along live, and fill out the survey as Patel works through it with those individuals that are going to be part of the virtual meeting. It's really important that we hear your voice around how to make sure our students, staff, and community remain safe in our buildings. And so we want to thank Patel, who's going to be hosting those first 2 sessions. They are not repeat sessions. So hear me, they are not repeat sessions. The first on the 2nd, we will get more information about what the district is doing, and Patel will start the conversation, and then we will finish the conversation on September 8th. After that, then our working group will come together after kind of gathering your data, and we will announce dates for those meetings coming up. I want to thank Charlita Tavares and Kim Mason, who are chairing that working group for us, and all of the members of the group. There's 30 some of you. I will not remember all of your names, but we so much appreciate you working with us. And remember, this is really to drive our strategic planning going forward and really helping to identify what is a safe school to ensure all of that wonderful portrait of a graduate work works. So again, thank you to everyone who is involved in that, and I look forward to what will come of it. And I forgot the biggest thank yous. Let me thank our staff. So Cheryl Ward, Chris Ward, and James Barnes already doing amazing work to get ready for these presentations. So impressed with you. I want to give you a public shout out. You are helping us rise up. So thank you. So let me turn it over to Board Member Beckerly for her announcement.
Okay, Mr. Wortman, if you could share your screen, the amazing Scott Wortman has helped me out here. Can everyone hear me? Okay, good. I am initiating the first board recognition for Rising Up, and in this case, Gearing Up. I'd like to, recently at an audit and accountability meeting, I saw incredible collaboration in Rising Up between Lois Carson, our head of OPSI, and I'm not sure, I'm hoping she's watching, Ms. Gillison's Office of Engagement, our Chief Engagement Officer, and then if Scott can scroll down, Dr. Michelle Klein, our Accountability Officer, and Ms. Wandana Virney, our Chief Information Officer. They shared, all right, Scott, can you go down one more? They shared what they were calling Operation Chromebook Distribution, but what I perceived as an incredible example of collaboration, problem solving, getting the job done, and making sure our efforts meet the needs of our students and our families. And it started even before this screen that talked about the labeling process. Ms. Virney was able to, through all sorts of planning, get our Chromebooks all delivered on time and formatted, and that was an incredible accomplishment in general, getting things like that happening on time, and particularly in times of COVID. And then at the audit and accountability meeting, they shared how all of our Chromebooks have been formatted, they have been labeled, they have a database where they're keeping track of the label and the number, the serial number, or the number we're assigning them. And then we're able to keep track of what students getting them. They arrange for e-signatures from the parents, which is an incredibly wise step because it's so hard to get parents to come in times of COVID, like things that are just going to survive COVID and work for us afterward too. The distribution process, the series of meetings and the places, the series of locations and the engagement involved with communicating to our parents, the opportunities, getting back to the database for a second, the capacity for everyone to search the database, principals, teachers, to know who has one, who doesn't have one, which families have them. And then the final aspect to all of this collaboration was when I asked the question that I've been bugging everybody about, what about the people who don't come to us? What about the people who don't log in? And the answer wonderfully was, we're keeping track of that too, and we're coordinating with our bus drivers and going to have them deliver the Chromebooks to the families who can't come and pick them up. And at that moment, there's an engagement opportunity where those bus drivers will be able to work with the parent or the guardian or the child and make sure they know how to log in. So if this is not the best example of rising up and gearing up and collaborating across organizations and between the district and the union and all of our staff and our CCS community, I don't know what is. And I really wanted to take a moment to acknowledge all of that. So thank you to all of you and all of the people who made this happen. Now, if I could, I'd start singing that Rise Up song, but I wouldn't dare. I'm so tempted though.
It was inspirational. If people haven't seen it, we should maybe play that at the next.
If I had been a little bit ahead of my game, I would have had Scott tee that up too, but I wasn't. I apologize. That really would have been the best. But
okay,
you know,
thank you, Board Member Beckerly. All right, we're going to move to Dr. Pierce.
So I want to take a second to encourage our community members to uplift our students. I had an interesting conversation today about adultification, and that's the process by which we as a society and we as family socialize and perceive our children to be a lot older than what they are. And we place a lot of responsibilities on them. So I want to challenge our community members to let our kids be kids. If you see a kid, you know, give them a word of encouragement, buy some bubbles for your neighbors, get outside and do some chalking on your sidewalk, but encourage our kids to be kids and protect that space for them. This has continued to be a very tough year as we look at 2020. We lost a hero, not only in life, but also in film for us. And this is in addition to some of the great figures that we've lost, including John Lewis, and now with, you know, Chadwick Boseman passing at such a young age. Our children need encouragement. They need encouragement to know that as adults, we are standing in the gap, that we are fighting for equity for them, that we are fighting for opportunity for them. And so again, my announcement is to challenge our community to continue to rise up, to support our babies. If you know that a church is too far and your porch can become a safe haven for kids to come get access to the internet, provide that safe haven and access to the internet for our babies. We need all hands on deck. As a proud product of Columbus, I know we can do it. So let's do it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pierce. Board Member Brown.
Yes, hi. You were very quick getting back to me. Just wanted to let you know about a project that's underway, the League of Women Voters, and some other folks that we've worked with are working on getting students registered to vote. Not necessarily all of that focused on this year, but focused on getting them registered, you know, for the future as well as for this year. And they've been challenged this year in part because of the COVID crisis, and there not being in-person classes that they can go into, but they're doing everything they can to get registration out and get word out. And one of the projects that they've done a lot with is to chalk sidewalks at high schools around the community, at all of our high schools, to you know, remind students and to encourage them to register, to contact them, and they can help with registration. And I think it's a good project, and they've done some really nice chalk work. One other thing that I want to just touch on, and I don't usually like to usually I like to keep this, any remarks at this point, uplifting. But I just learned this afternoon a story about a person who works for the government, who's been going to work every day. And apparently, he learned a week ago that his wife was exposed and tested positive for COVID. And he had continued to go to work until today, potentially exposing quite a few people. He hadn't had any symptoms and thought that he'd just go to work. Incredibly irresponsible. And I think that from time to time, we just have to remind our parents about their students, their children, remind our teachers, remind our staff, everybody, if you believe you've been exposed, if you learn that you may have been exposed, stay home, quarantine. You have to do it. I know that when we get back to in-school classes, this will become even more important. It's not going to be gone necessarily by the time we get there, but we have students out who are student athletes engaging in sports and extracurriculars. And people just have to get it that if they've been exposed or if there's a reason that they should get tested or anything else, that they need to quarantine themselves and not expose everybody else. At this place, the person had been in contact with quite a few people, and it is a real challenge in the workplace to have to trace all of that and potentially test others and have others quarantine because they may have been exposed. So just a reminder, it's easy enough these days to remember to wear the mask and to wash hands and to keep distance, because everybody, for the most part, most responsible people are doing it. But this notion of there are times that you just need to quarantine and not expose others. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Brown. That is a very important reminder. To Vice President Reyes.
Thank you. I just want to echo Dr. Pierce real quickly. I have a senior in my house who was not feeling up to par for her senior year, and she was just not feeling it. So I went and I got her a little basket of candies, and I took my markers out and got a piece of paper and said, put class of 2021, and just talked to her and about having, changing her attitude, having a good day, but that it's okay to feel a little bummed. But just, she thought I was a little weird. She said I was a little quirky, but I was just trying to motivate her and tell her, it's going to be a great year. It's going to start, and you're going to have a great year, and hopefully we'll end it on a great note, and we'll be at your graduation before you know it. So it did take a little bit, and so I agree with you, Dr. Pierce. It's difficult, and she's pretty good motivator on her own, but it's been a challenging year for her, and she's feeling a little blah. So it took a little extra, but not a lot of expenses. A little sneaker bar and a piece of paper made up with markers, and it brightened her day. So I want to echo that. And then just a quick reminder: the census. So let's not forget about the census. We got 30 days to fill out the census. I know there's activities all around the city to ensure that the census is out there and that everyone is counted. That the district is heavily engaged in having the message out there. There's several community groups out there. And just want to remind everybody that the census had 30 more days. So if you have some time, it takes a couple minutes. If you need any assistance, there's a lot of organizations ready to assist. And I know a lot of United Way and census takers are out there ready and willing to get that information out. Thank you, President Dare.
Thank you so much. And that's a really important reminder too, Vice President Reyes, about the mindset of the grown-up impacts our students. So grown-ups, I know this time is stressful and challenging for us, but we do have to try to maintain a positive attitude for our CCS scholars. It's so important for them. Now to Board Member Cole.
Thank you, Madam President. I just wanted to briefly acknowledge the homegoing of Mr. Richard Rick Logan, AKA the Hammer. He is significant to Columbus City Schools because of his contribution to the Columbus Education Association. He's a former educator. He and his former partner, who passed away in 2014 before he did, Miss Wagner. They were very special people, not just because of the work that they did for Columbus City Schools in the community. They were also my neighbors across the street from me. So I just wanted to acknowledge his passing and ask if we can give just a moment of silence in memory of him. I thank you for that, Madam President. Again, my condolences, all of our condolences to his family, to the CEA, and our many thanks for his many decades of contribution, years of contribution to our district and to public schools in general. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Board Member Cole. And before we enter executive session, I just want to remind the community that this is our 175th school year. And so as we continue to reimagine, to redesign, we have so much history to celebrate. And so I hope to bring pieces of our history to you on social media, maybe sometimes in the board meetings. But it's important to know where we've come from so that we can really appreciate how far we have and how far we've gotten. We have a lot of work to do and we are excited. You saw from the opening video today, if you missed it, you can go back and watch. We are on the right path to really making a fantastic district, to be that model of urban education. And it really takes all of us. It takes every single member of our organization. It takes our scholars. It takes our parents and families, and it takes our community. And together we will make it happen. So happy 175th birthday to us, and we will keep celebrating. So with that, I will ask Vice President Reyes to give us a motion for executive session.
Thank you, President Dare. I move that the Board of Education recess into executive session per section 121.22 G1 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment for compensation of public employees.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you so much. The board will now go into executive session. We will return to public session to formally adjourn our meeting. Thank you to all of the staff who will be leaving us. It's so wonderful to see you, and thank you for all the hard work you do each and every day on behalf of our students. We are back from executive session, and the last thing we have on our agenda is to adjourn our meeting. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Dr. Pierce?
Yes.
Mr. Ragland?
Yes.
Vice President Reyes?
Yes.
President Adair?
Yes.
Ms. Beckerly?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Cole?
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful evening. Good night, Columbus community.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you all.
See ya.